There are over 800 Pokemon that have been released in Pokemon GO over the past 8 years. And although many of them are loved by all, like Charizard and Eevee, there are a handful of Pokemon that have garnered a disgraceful reputation, and many players wish they never existed. Like the first hated Pokemon in the history of the game, Blissey. If you didn't play in 2016, you completely dodged this headache, but for those of us who did, it's impossible to forget. You see, the gym system used to be completely different, and since raids or PvP didn't exist at the time, battling gyms was the only real thing you could do with your Pokemon you collected. So fighting and claiming gyms was very competitive, and a lot more players participated in it. Enter Blissey, the world's most annoying defender. Back in the day, gyms used to hold 10 Pokemon instead of just 6, and you could put multiples of each Pokemon in a gym, where now you can only add 1 of each. So players and teams that were extra competitive would create the Iron Man of a gym defense, a full team of 10 Blisseys. One was hard enough to defeat, especially since Machamp was the best option and was considered fairly rare at the time. But if you pulled up to a gym and saw 10 Blissey, you most likely didn't even try. There was no point. It would take incredibly long to defeat these gyms. And since the entire system was different, battling through the defending Pokemon was much harder. So many players, including myself, learned to despise Blissey and avoid any gyms that had 10 of them. And nowadays, players still don't like Blissey, but not because of the gym system, it's because the shiny looks exactly like the regular, and that just annoys people nowadays. Many years later, another Pokemon was released in a way that would really annoy the player base. In July of 2023, Zygarde became the new hardest Pokemon to get in the entire game. You could get the first form of it through special research, which was easy enough, but to be able to evolve it to an actual useful form, you had to do a lot. Specifically collect what's known as Zygarde cells, which only spawn on routes. And back when this Pokemon was released, routes were super unpopular, mainly due to their poor rewards, and also the feature rolled out in a pretty frustrating way to where not everyone got to access it for a while. Kind of a sour taste in everyone's mouth around the feature. So there was that, and then actually getting the Zygarde cells, even one, was really hard to do. Most players completely glossed over the feature and accepted they'd never get the evolution. And even now, over a year after the release, with updates that made Zygarde cells easier to find, most players still do not have their complete form Zygarde, myself included. And many people probably never will. Now, for most players, that's fine. Who cares? Just a game, just a Pokemon. It's all right. But here's the real reason why this Pokemon's so hated. Complete Form Zygarde is one of the best Pokemon in the GO Battle League, ranking at the top of both the Ultra and the Masters Leagues. So if you really like PvP, you kind of really need to catch this Pokemon, which requires an ungodly amount of time, even with recent updates. And if you don't have yours yet and you run into one in the GO Battle League, it's really easy to get frustrated. And don't worry, if you feel like you'll never get this Pokemon and that annoys you, I won't get it either. We can hate it together, it's fine. Probably Pokemon GO's most controversial Pokemon ever was Galarian Mr. Mime. And it wasn't even the Mime's fault. As part of the 2020 holiday season, Galarian Mr. Mime was to be released as part of a special research event that costed $8. $8 to catch an absolutely useless Pokemon. Why? It was also called the Tappity Tap special research. So what is that? This obviously frustrated players because everyone loves a new Pokemon, and Galarian Mr. Mime was cool enough since it was kind of Christmassy. But for $8? To Pokemon GO's credit, that wasn't the only thing you got with the $8 ticket. The other features for this included, you were able to get Mr. Mime candy, and at the end of the special research, evolve your Galarian Mr. Mime to a Mr. Rhyme, so you got another new Pokemon. You earned a special event medal, got filled research tasks with Pokemon like Alolan Vulpix, Jinx, Jigglypuff, Whismur, Chimecho, and Snorunt as the reward. You earned a brand new avatar pose inspired by Mr. Mime. The research also gave you 3 incense, 3 rare candies, 30 Ultra Balls, the Premium Battle Pass, 3 Premium Battle Passes, 1 Poffin, 2 Glacial Lure Modules, 3 Super Incubators, and 3 Star Pieces. And there was even more exclusive field research that gave you encounters with Jinx, Lapras, Woobat, and Cubchoo. And if I'm not mistaken, this is also the event where Shiny Cubchoo made its Pokemon GO debut, which I think I caught.
God! Yes! Yes! And I almost Go Plussed it. And
even though I was super annoyed, I did catch the $8 Mr. Mime.
Oh, there he is! Galarian Mr. Mime at 849 CP. Dude, he looks great. No, that looks hilarious. Worth $8? Not sure, but like looks great.
This next one's a sleeper because it's super cute, it's super fun, a lot of people love it, but it's an absolute troll. Shuckle. But who could really hate this cute little guy, right? Fun fact about Shuckle is that it has one of the highest defense stats in the entire game at 396, meaning it's harder to defeat than nearly every legendary, shadow, fully evolved Pokemon. So if you thought taking down a Blissey was annoying, wait till you have to battle up against a Shuckle, especially if it's powered up. Many hardcore players have teams of maxed out Shuckle literally just to troll people. And even though you can't fill an entire gym with them, you can drop off a maxed out one in a gym, and it has a very similar effect. And gyms aren't the only place they're used to annoy people. Apparently the legend who's editing this video, Reese, takes his Shuckle into the Go Battle League and literally makes people rage quit because it takes so long to defeat a Shuckle, which is kind of a smart idea. So even though he's small and cute, he's mighty annoying. Galarian Mr. Mime wasn't the only Pokemon to get released behind a controversial paywall and therefore be hated by the entire community. The mythical Pokemon Keldeo was also released in December of 2022 as part of another special research storyline that costed players another $8. What's up with this paywalled Pokemon in December thing? I guess everyone's got their like Christmas money, right? The $8 Something Extraordinary special research was a 7-stage storyline that actually had a decent amount of value in it. Stage 1 gave you some rare candies, some dust, Great Balls, Silver Pineapple Berries, and some encounters. Stage 2 gave you a Charge TM, more Stardust, rare candies, and Silver Pineapps. Stage 3 gave 3 Incubators, 1,000 Stardust, rare candies, and Pineapps. Stage 4, 2 Incense, 1,250 Stardust, rare candies, and Pineapps. Stage 5 is where you got your Keldeo encounter. You also got an encounter with a very rare Alomomola, a fast TM, 1,500 Stardust, some rare candy and Pineapps. Stage 6 gave you 2 Super Incubators and some other things. And Stage 7 gave you 6,000 Stardust along with a Tortuga encounter, candies for Keldeo, and a Keldeo t-shirt. Even though there was some value there, most players were super frustrated about this $8 price tag. And what made it even more frustrating was the fact that Keldeo was an absolute unit in the Go Battle League when this released. So if you were serious about battling, you kind of had to spend the $8 for this thing. And even now, years later, Keldeo is still super relevant, ranking 6th overall as the best fighting type. So basically, if you didn't spend that $8 to catch it back in the day, that decision is still haunting you. Don't worry though, I caught mine because I'm pay to win. Next can be considered Pokemon GO's most useless Pokemon ever released. In December of 2017, the main portion of the Hoenn region was released, and with it, Slakoth, Vigoroth, and the one and only Slaking. When it came out, Slaking was the only Pokemon in the game that could pass 5,000 CP, so naturally everyone went crazy for it. Most people raced to catch, evolve, and power one up all the way to 5,000 CP, which was a very costly usage of time and Stardust. But then we all realized that Slaking was completely useless, and it was a complete waste of time and Stardust to do that. Statistically speaking, this is actually one of the worst Pokemon ever released in the game, and many people have it completely maxed out level 51 because it gets to level or to 5,000 CP, and most players don't really know much about IVs or really how good Pokemon are in general. And you know, for a lot of people, high CP equals good. So a lot of people spent a lot on this because it went so high in CP, but it was useless. And to add insult to injury, in 2019, Slakoth got a community day. Now this was especially annoying at the time because back then, community day events were actually pretty good. Each release was either very meta relevant or very rare, and this was neither. Now we all had super high CP, shiny, and useless Slaking, which by the way looks almost identical to the non-shiny, so it's even more annoying. And then for some reason in June of 2024, Slakoth got a special costume for it and its evolutions. So now you can have a 5,000 CP, shiny, costume, useless Slaking. Nice. I can promise you that you haven't thought about this next Pokemon in months, maybe even years. Because after searching through several Pokemon ranking websites, this is at the bottom of nearly every list. I give you one of the ugliest Pokemon ever released, Bruxish, which was first released during the Festival of Colors event in March of 2023. It's sort of rare to find, and it hasn't really been featured as a part of any event since it came out. Probably because nobody likes it. In Pokemon GO, it's absolutely useless, can't evolve, useless in the raids, close to rank 300 in PvP, which is like the bottom of the barrel. Just not worth the Pokeballs. But you know what is worth the Pokeballs? These next 2 videos, because I used some on some very cool things. Check them out.